Which brings me to your data on new project announcements. Is that giving us any glimmer of hope that there is a pickup on the private investment side? The sort of premise that the government is working with is that if they step up capex, eventually they'll crowd in private investment. Is there any indication that that's going to work out?
So on the face of it, it looked like that there are good investments happening in the month of in the quarter ended June, but when I looked at the numbers more in detail, I found that most of the investments were of Indian entrepreneurs going to Davos to meet state governments over there to announce projects in India. So it's more the optics and not the projects. I'm being skeptical, but pardon me for that, but that's not done. That's not what investments was in the 1990s or even in the 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8 era, when people were falling over each other to set up steel plants, cement plants, all kinds of things. That's not happening as yet. We require that. We require to reach that mad pace of over-investments. And that's the only way it happens.
So the data, sir, just to clarify, the data of new projects that you put out, that captures the announcements, not sort of breakground.
So an announcement only if it is a real project. If somebody says, I'm going to put some $1 billion into India, but doesn't say where, we don't take that into account. It could just be a takeover. We require to have the person say or the entity tell us that it's a project somewhere doing so and so, putting so much money. So it could be a steel plant in some part of Karnataka or somewhere of the kind, and we require at least that much.
Okay. Mr. Vyas, the private investment story, is this still about, sort of the level of capacity utilization, although that has started to move up? And in certain industries, data suggests that capacity utilization is now at a point where you should see fresh capacity coming up. Is that still the story which is holding back large private investments, or are there other factors to your mind? Global uncertainty, local uncertainty, interest rates?
It is largely capacity utilization.
Okay.
Other factors are there. Global uncertainty, etc. is there. But the biggest factor, in my opinion, is low capacity utilization. Many sectors, steel particularly, and some groups have done a lot of investments. JSW, for example, has invested a lot into new steel capacities. There have been new capacities in cement as well. As their capacity utilization touches a certain level, they do go out and create new capacities or announce new ones and actually even complete them. But for the rest of the economy, there isn't much. And even the ones which are there in steel and cement is not big.
They don't move the needle for the overall economy. What's the story, or what's your impression of how this push from the government on capex is going to play out? Last year's budgetary allocations were large. This year's are even larger. That if it gets sort of put onto the ground, it should start to pay some dividends, or are you skeptical?
Well, the public finance data for April and May show that the government did spend a lot of money on capex. They did get good monies from taxes, and they did spend money on capex. They have promised repeatedly that they will spend a lot more money on capex. I think that's very good. I think that's inadequate.
Okay.
That's not going to spur private sector to start investments. That's unlikely to happen. So the government, for example, this is not exactly the case, but nevertheless, if the government says, I'm going to spend a lot of money into, say, road building, and that's where they're spending most of the money, then some infrastructure companies will get those projects, and it'll look like some capex is happening. Their market capitalization will go up. But that's not going to move the economy. For the economy to move, we require demand to pick up a lot more. We require entrepreneurs to feel enthused, to take big risks, to go and produce goods and services for the competitive markets, not infrastructure which is covered by the government. You can have a very large project. For example, Rajasthan had many projects in green energy, but that's not competitive markets enough. We require steel, cement, automobiles, textiles, chemicals, the works to be a lot more aggressive, spread all over the country.